All right. Hi, everyone. Lucas and I are here and are just going to walk through two items with you. We'll walk through our finished magazine and then we'll walk through the process booklet of how we got to that magazine. Lucas, I'll turn it over to you to do your intro, then I'll introduce myself, and then we could flip through the booklet.
So this is our magazine, Brief Forward, the future of vaping recovery, how technology can help people quit for good.
I'm Jim Monaco. I know we've all been kind of making videos and sharing with each other. Great to see everyone and learn about your product. I am an asynchronous student at SCAD, working with SCAD now. Here we go. I'll introduce the first couple pages, and actually I can make it bigger so we could see it better. This was our process. So the magazine, we start out, kind of making it look like a regular magazine. The cover is what you just saw right here. Um, and then it opens up to a table of contents just so that the reader, if we were handing this over to someone who was maybe interested in working with us on the app that we created or that we're thinking through or suggesting, that they would be able to flip around through the table of contents. And then we have our welcome page here where we just kind of introduce a little bit about what our goal was, how we entered into this work, why it was something that was important to us. And as you see here on our page, this paragraph here, it says our goal is simple. We want to inspire hope and guide progress. And we're really appealing to developers who might be wanting to create a new app, but also teachers who are working in education spaces, someone who's actually looking to quit, so a vapor themselves. So we want to be able to appeal to several audiences, and that's what this welcome page here aims to do. And I'll turn it over to Lucas for the next couple pages.
So we starting here with the problem, the issue, which is that many young people um, start vaping. Most of them are students. They start vaping for many reasons. The main reason is social coping. The social component has a very important part of vaping, and oftenly it starts with curiosity. A friend offers a puff, the flavor smells good, has a good taste, and the teenager gets hooked into the addiction, and that prevents him to his brain development, obstructs his studies, and when he gets hooked up to the addiction, for him to quit is very difficult due to many factors that can be the technology, the social pressure, and the main cause of relapse is stress. And quitting vape is stressful by itself. And when you leave the student or the person who is trying to quit an already stressful environment, it's almost impossible for that person to actually quit for good.
All right. Some of the work that we did, and we'll talk a little bit about this when we go into the other booklet when we talk about our process. We wanted to look at, we looked at initial uh, demographic data, but what you see here is once we did some of our secondary research, then we went in and we actually did our own primary research. And this is some of on this page 6 here, some of the information that we were able to gather through the survey that we conducted. Again, we had talked about the fact that we tried very hard to get a larger sample, but we understand that we are not quantitative research experts, and we're not putting this study out. But if this magazine was really going out and we were really producing it to an audience, definitely would want a larger sampling so that anyone who asked us about some of the research methods. We would be able to talk about, we were able to survey 1,000 candidates, and this is what we gathered. So this is just a kind of a small bit of information, but what we really found was uh, of the folks that we were able to survey, about 18 to 20 said that they were able to quit without support. A higher majority recognized, so 24 to 48%, so almost 50% in the range, talked about that they feel they were able to quit, but they needed some support. Without support relapse rate is 80 to 82% relapse, so very high. So what we're seeing in this small sample of 13 to 18-year olds and a couple college students that we were able to poll, we're seeing that relapse is very high, and especially without any type of support. And so that is what our magazine as developers we're really trying to put out there is what can we do to provide that support so relapse is not so high. Vaping habits, the majority, so 40%, the highest amount, said that they vaped daily. And they do this at parties, they do this at school, and in their home and other spaces. So a lot of different types of settings. And the challenges of quitting are many. There's peer pressure, there's getting rid of stress. There's just the curiosity of what is this? I'm just bored. Um, so there's a lot of motivating factors and there's a lot of triggers. And so these are all the things, these challenges were things as we research and as we appeal to developers, we really want our research to be meaningful so that anything that's developed in terms of support will be able to deal with the motivations, the barriers, the triggers, and some of the information about the quitting attempts.
So we're gonna talk now about the frameworks um, that we created based on our research. So the first one is social connection. Social connection can go both ways. It can be a beneficial factor for the person that is trying to quit and can also be um the starting point of the addiction. The technology, vapes are getting more and more advanced. They now are more addictive than ever and also more cheap. The support, our research showed that when the person that is trying to quit have support, the support percentage, the quitting percent, the successful quitting percentage increases, and stress is a great factor for relapse. So now we're gonna talk a little bit about each point. So the first one we're gonna talk is stress. So stress sustains the habit. Stress keeps the vaping cycle alive because the nicotine provides quick temporary relief and the user begin to rely it during tense moments.
So kind of moving along with that, support and structure enables long-term change. And again, we'll talk about how we sort of arrived at these in our next booklet. But people quit best with a plan and scaffolding. So they need to be able to, not do this cold turkey. They need to think it through. They need to think about what their triggers are. They need to be able to have a support plan and they need to have some sort of check-in. And that's sort of both the secondary and the primary research guided us to that particular idea of support along with structure, enabling long-term change, and sort of mitigating this idea that people would relapse. New technology makes vapes more addictive and cheaper. And so as we've, talked to folks in our interviews, some of the results that we had from our survey, we're realizing that people are curious based on, the different flavors that are out there, the technology that makes vaping, less detectable. I work in a school system where we actually have to have vape detectors in our bathrooms because it's so hard to detect, with human scent or, as students sneak them in. So the technology has made this more available, more accessible, and more addictive.
So, social connection reinforces use and recovery. Social connection is a very important point of our research because it's for many young teenagers the reason why they start vaping. So social dynamics play a dual powerful role in nicotine and vaping behavior because it's often embedded in social environments. Some peer networks that encourage consumption and also leverage support quitting that makes social connection both a risk factor and a recovery asset. So based on all our research and our frameworks, we created a concept, a possible solution, which is called Banquet. So Banquet is a social app that helps to build a community of people that want to quit vape. So it makes quitting easier. It creates a support group that helps you quit for good. So our solution uses the social connection factor to benefit the person that is trying to quit nicotine. Yeah.
And this concept really sort of is in line with, these popular type of apps like Noom that really focus on weight loss, but focusing on the psychological aspect along with community. And so we were inspired by these type of apps. Our call to action is that vaping leaves more than just a mark on the lungs. It affects a lot of it's not just physiological. It also impacts concentration. It impacts the student's social and emotional aspects. So we really are trying to think through all of the education that would have to go into enlightening folks who are vaping to just say, yes, it might not have the same impact as smoking nicotine. There's this thing that we found in our research that people just say, oh, it's just vapor. But it really does have an impact. And so we're inviting educators, developers, caregivers, any sort of change maker to turn a lot of the insights that we were able to come to just into action. And as a community together, we can design solutions. We can continue the research. We can continue education for our youth and young adults and even adults so that we can come together and provide that support, speak each other's language. And so our tagline here is let's breathe forward, one life, one choice, one hopeful step at a time. So that is our entire magazine. And now what we'll do is talk a little bit more about the process and how we sort of arrived at all of this. And that is here in our booklet, and I'm going to present that real fast. Okay. So again, this is our Breathe Forward. This was the cover of our magazine. And then we'll talk a little bit about how we arrived. We have our table of contents here, very similar to how the magazine was developed, but a lot of parts that were sort of brought together to condense down into a consumable magazine that is not, 50, 60 pages long, but gives enough information that someone who's interested might be able to then seek out more research or more information or contact us as the creators so that we can provide them more of the process and help them along in their journey. We talked a little bit through this already. So Lucas, I could turn it over to you for the intent.
Yeah. So our intent statement is that young people, some of the most at-risk groups when it comes to vaping, are heavily influenced by peer pressure, stress, and marketing that normalizes and or glamorizes nicotine use. Our team seeks to explore these factors that drive early addiction. So this is our intent statement. We aim to design a system that can empower youth to build healthier habits.
And this is where it all started. This was like the beginning of our journey. This is what we intended with our project. And so this is kind of the statement that led to everything that eventually became our magazine. We talked a little bit about this already. The issue, what makes people vape. So this is all based on research that we had done, secondary research. So that was sort of one part of our process was all of the secondary research. Lucas and I gathered information about the vaping overview, which we talked a little bit about in the final product. But these were all of the sort of key words that came about in the research when we looked, and also our own research that we did, our primary research through our surveys and through our interviews. Um, you want to do this, Lucas, or do you want me?
I could do it.
Okay.
So our main umbrella question is how can we intervene to reduce vaping? And based on that question, we created three sub questions, which is what makes people vape, which is the start of the addiction. The second one is what influence on relapse and how does peer pressure influence vaping. So, uh,
You want me to talk through this one?
so the stakeholder map, we can see that adolescents are the main risk group, and then it comes the outer circle, the parents, the friends of vapors, medical staff, and also teachers that are on that vaping environment. Then it comes the institutions, and then in the most peripheral circle, it comes the policymakers and the big vaping industries.
Yeah, and I think one thing that, Lucas, you and I sort of learned from this when we were making all the maps and sort of thinking through this, the stakeholder map was really crucial to think like who would we target? Who needs to know about this? Who would be the audience for our magazine? So kind of coming up with this stakeholder map really enlightened us about like all of the different people who are involved in the adolescent and the young adult who vape, who they run into, and how we can appeal to them. Um, the journey map that Lucas and I created was, taking it to sort of the next level once we identified those people who were involved, what sort of journey would the person who was going on this, this vape addiction or this, trying vaping out for the first time, like what were they going to run up against. And so we thought about, they would face challenges. They would have some sort of a awareness by the end of this journey. They would recognize supports. The supports would be, part of physiological, psychological, and emotional support through education, through maybe the app that we created. They would understand that there are a lot of supports out there, and that if they were struggling with stress and anxiety, that there are other healthier ways of coping with that, like psychological and emotional support through therapy and through community and through groups. So the journey map was sort of us thinking through if there's all of these people involved in the stakeholder situation, like where do people fall? When does the vapor eventually meet up with these people, and at what point, and what support? And are they supporters or are they enemies or adversaries that are sort of pulling the vapor in and kind of perpetuating bad habits?
So this is our empathy map. We can see how vaping starts with curiosity, then all the social part of the problem we can see on this map. Um, Shows how stress, how social pressure, and mixed messages shape behavior, while highlighting a deeper and more a need for belonging and relief and judgment-free support. So the sensory cues show that the current vape experience it's very tough. It's very stressful. We can see that the images show like there's an image of fire, of a baby crying, of a scared face. So it shows that people or that vaping by itself is a very stressful situation. The ideal vaping experience on the bottom, it shows that people running, making exercise. It shows it shows people a gathering of people. It shows the picture of a family, and also words of support on the ideal quitting experience that shows that the social part of quitting is very important. It's viewed as necessary and as very helpful. The current quitting experience, in comparison, doesn't have any pictures that show social connection because indeed, quitting is a very is very lonely. People struggle a lot. It's something very internal that if we have support, increases the chances of quitting and also makes it more uh, less not harmful, but less tough on the person that is trying to quit.
Yeah, I think the cool thing, Lucas took the lead on the sensory cues as we went back and forth. But what was really cool is a lot of the imagery that he came up with came directly from the things that we heard in our interviews about. We asked questions about like how would, quitting be more supportive? What would that look like? Or what would help you not relapse? And a lot of the feedback that we had from those interviews really relied on that this ideal quitting experience, that it would involve supporting community and it wouldn't be lonely. It wouldn't be something that felt so isolating. So it was really cool to then put those sort of words into images. The key insights that we came up with, we were just kind of talking about that. This eventually led to what we did then with our affinity mapping. Um, I talked a little bit about this already in our first booklet, so I'm going to skip over that. Um, this is some of the continued research that we did and that we as we did our affinity mapping pulled in some of these statistics and some of this research from our secondary sources. These kind of main takeaways are the things that these 9 points eventually became big guiding factors in the affinity mapping that we did. I won't read all of them, but I'll go through this middle line here. Cravings hit during crunch times with coffee and peers around. So, sort of like as we're out and about, I'm sipping coffee and now I want something else. It's not the coffee isn't necessarily hitting the craving. I need a little bit more. Um, the vapor may notice health and control issues, but feels like limited urgency to stop. So just not that urgency to do anything about it. Vaping gives quick, calm, and focus, and skipping it brings irritability. So I don't want to be irritable. And so if vaping makes me calm and helps me focus, and I'm really busy with school, I'm gonna do it. So these are kind of these main takeaways that all of these things that we've been talking about, how we kind of came to them through this process.
So this is our affinitization. We started with 60, 50 plus data points, which we cluster into 10 insights. The insights are the ones that are in blue, and the data points are the ones that are in yellow. We say that we collected a lot of data about vaping, about the demographics, about the technology of the vapes, about the hazards of the vapes, about the consumers, about the addiction by itself, about the habit. And we created these 10 insights. Uh, then, based on these 10 insights, we clustered it again into four principles that we already talked on the
Yep.
magazine. And this, based on these four principles, we created this solution that we already talked on the magazine. We can see how all the information clustering by clustering led to a conclusion. I feel that this process works very well. It's very gratifying to reach the final of the project and see how all the research, all the data we collected led to a solution.
I know we went through this, but these are all the parts, the principles that we came up with. Lucas talked about that when he presented his magazine. These are them broken down, which we already explained. But as you see, these were some of those takeaways that we came from the affinity mapping. So you see how the process of all of this eventually comes together to make our overall magazine. And then you just have more pages from our magazine, the solution that we came to. So that's sort of that big principle at the very top of the affinity mapping that Lucas was just talking about. And then our call to action, which is sort of like the one of the very last pages of our magazine, to like inspire the next step. So now we know this, we know what people have said, we have this product. Now we need to move into action. We need to do more research. We need to try this app out. And then we need to refine it. We need to tweak it. We need to make it better. So we kind of arrived at this final call to action to move into action after this process is created. Now it's time to do something about it. So that is everything. I'm going to go ahead and exit the full screen. So at this point, we just want to thank everyone for coming on the journey with us. And, Lucas, it's been awesome working with you. I'm glad we got to partner up together. And Professor Nair, thank you for helping us through the process and, giving us a lot of feedback along the way to refine the overall end product.
That's it. Yeah, it's been a pleasure to work with Dr. Jim. Uh, I think that the project came out really good. It's really insightful. I learned a lot in this class, not just about vaping, but about the whole process of research. And I strongly believe that it will be very beneficial in my future, this class. And yeah, it's been very grateful to have put all our work together in this booklet. And yeah, thank you so much, Professor Nair. And thank you so much, Jim. Yeah, and this is our work. Yeah.
Thanks, Lucas. Yep. Yeah, if anyone wants to reach out to us, feel free. And hope everyone has a great break and see you next quarter.